I've got two questions I want you to consider. As a boss, are you relatable? And as an entrepreneur, do you fear the prospect of opportunity? I'll give you some time to contemplate those two concepts. In the meantime, I've got some information I want you to know. It appears that a large majority of today's American employees are feeling disconnected from their bosses and managers, and it's putting a real damper on morale and workplace culture. According to CNBC, 46% of U.S. employees say that their bosses somewhat or rarely understand the contributions they make to the workplace on a daily basis. According to an April 2025 Workplace Perception Gap Survey commissioned by the HR platform, the Predictive Index, which sampled approximately 1,000 workers across different age groups, job levels, and industries. Now I want to return to my original inquiries, which I posed at the beginning of this very thoughtful moment of reflection and conversation. But first, I want to introduce my friend, Justin M Riordan, to the conversation. He's a national keynote speaker, author, and entrepreneur, known as the anti-guru of emotional intelligence, a designer by training and a builder by nature. He founded the award-winning Spade and Archer design agency before turning his attention to human design and how people intentionally build emotionally intelligent companies, relationships, and lives. Through the Relationable Toolkit, Justin teaches simple and repeatable tools that help both entrepreneurs and CEOs of companies start the shift from fear to freedom, helping leaders reconnect with what truly matters. And Riordan joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Justin, if you're ready, my friend, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn how you help entrepreneurs and CEOs take advantage of opportunity. My friend, great to see you, and happy Friday to you, my friend.
And to you, sir. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So, Justin, tell me, what do you think most CEOs and entrepreneurs view fear before opportunity, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think that excitement and being scared are the same exact emotion. One of them has fear and one of them doesn't. And so we can be completely excited to face something, or we can choose to be scared of it. And once we choose to take the fear out of that emotion, the only thing that we're left with is just pure excitement. And so while something may look very, very scary, if we choose to be excited by it, we are no longer scared walking into that situation. So I really think that fear is an emotion that we choose to have, not that we are given in life.
And tell me, Justin, why do you think it's important for people to take advantage of opportunities professionally when they present themselves rather than always looking at sort of the analytical version of taking advantage of opportunities. So how can we get more professional people to be bold and take advantages of opportunities once they arise? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
You know, one of my absolute favorite people in the world that has ever existed is Helen Keller. And I'm going to loosely quote her. And she said, so many of us, when a door closes, we spend so much time looking at the closed door that we fail to notice the open window next to it. And to me, here's what she's talking about. The door was very, very easy to go through. It was, you could open it up, you could just walk right through, you're good to go. But with the window, you have to open the window and you got to climb and you might get scratched up a little bit. And then maybe there's a bit of a drop on the other side. It's not quite as easy as the door, but because we spend so much time looking at the opportunity that we missed, that was not clean and easy, we fail to notice that the window is open next to it. And I love that idea. Opportunities rarely come to us gift wrapped. They're not perfect. They don't look exact. They don't feel easy. A lot of them feel like failures. But when we take a look at those failures and we say, hey, wait a second, this isn't nearly as bad as I thought it was, there's a way to turn this into that silver lining. There's a way to make it good. And that's that open window. It's slightly harder to get through. And so many of us, when an opportunity lands in our lap, we're so busy trying to stop it away because it makes it uncomfortable. That we fail to notice the opportunity in it. And so I like to use the phrase flopportunity. Every flop has an opportunity within it. We just have to figure out what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Justin, I know that you help entrepreneurs trapped by their own success, my friend, redesign their lives to live the life that they want to live, my friend. So talk to me about helping people redesign their lives if they feel trapped by their success. And what goes into that, my friend?
Yeah, so with a lot of entrepreneurs, take me for instance. I owned my business for 16 years. I just exited in October. And the business that I had designed, the life that I had designed, was based on what I wanted when I was a 35-year-old. And by the time I got to be a 50-year-old, I was looking at my success and it wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wasn't having fun anymore. I wasn't enjoying myself anymore. And I think that a lot of us feel like we have to continue to live our 35-year-old version of success or our 20-year-old version of success. And we don't necessarily have to. A lot of us are trapped by our own success. We can't talk to our employees or to our partners or to our clients or to our spouses about the problems that we're having because all those people are dependent upon our success and failure. And if we, for one moment, wear our heart on our sleeve and say, hey, I'm worried about our success, all of a sudden everybody around us starts to melt down because they are all looking to us to be their center tent pole. They all lean on us. And so redesigning our lives and making it so that we actually have opportunities to speak to other people who understand our problems that are not necessarily dependent upon our success or failure can make it so that we can live much happier lives and we don't have to carry the burden of all of our stress by ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the prolific few. According to the American Psychological Association, lying is not equally distributed. Research shows that approximately all lies in America are told by an estimated 5% of the population. Therefore, I wanted to dive into the subject of mendacity, a person's willingness to openly lie, with Riordan telling me why most lies start with the small stuff.
Right. So I was out with a friend. She had asked me, she said, hey, I have this new friend. Her name is Niffer, short for Jennifer. I want you to come and meet my friend. And I want you to tell me what you think of her. And I was like, I would love to do that. No problem. So we went out and we were having a nice time. And we were in a bar at one point, sitting at a table. And we were talking about the 5 love languages. And I had said to my friend, I said, oh, I love to receive touch. That's how I always always feel the most loved. And when I'm dealing with other people, I love to do acts of service and quality time. Those are kind of the two ways that I love to give love. And she said, oh, I really love gifts and I love words of affirmation. Those are how I receive love. And we turned to the third friend, Niffer, and we said, Niffer, what do you think? What are your love languages? And she said, all of them. And we're like, oh, but that's not really how it works. So like if you were to describe like how you like to receive love or how you like to give love, what are your love languages there? And she said, again, all of them. And if she had read the book, if she knew the book, the 5 love languages, she would know that everybody has a couple that they love to give. Everybody has a couple they love to receive. And everybody has a couple that they absolutely hate. That is not their thing. Like, I do not like gifts. They don't do anything for me. They're not my jam. If somebody gives me a gift, I'm not going to bat it away, but it doesn't ever make me feel like I'm loved by doing that. In that moment, Niffer had an opportunity to say, I don't know that concept. Why don't you help me to understand it? But instead, because she wanted to fit in so badly, she chose to lie and say all of them, which made her look like a complete and total idiot because she was unwilling to be vulnerable. So in that moment, she had this thing called mendacity, and mendacity is a willingness to lie. And if we have somebody in our lives who is willing to lie in low stakes situations, then they are most certainly willing to lie in high stakes situations. So my friend, she called me up a couple of weeks later and she said, so what did you think of Niffer? And I said, do you want to hear the truth or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? Because I don't like lying to people. It's not my thing, but I also don't like hurting people's feelings. So I got her permission, I got her consent to tell her the truth. And I said, I think there are a lot of red flags in this person. I said, I think there's a lot of mendacity. I think this person is willing to lie in low stake situations. And because of that, she will probably lie to you in high stake situations. Fast forward 6 weeks later, I'm receiving a chain of text messages from my friends saying, this is insane. This has gone bad so quickly. And sure enough, Niffer was not a good person. She did not follow through and be a good friend, ended up lying in a really big situation, which ended up hurting my other friend. So when we see mendacity in another person, it's not enough to just shut down a relationship right away and say, okay, boom, let's just go. But we should put up our warning systems and say, okay, let's keep an eye out to see what's going on with this person. Where are they going to be? Where are they going to land? Question them more. Mendacity is a really good early signal that something might not be good with that person in that particular relationship for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Justin, I also want to talk to you about how fear shifts to trust and how confusion can transform into clarity, my friend. Fred, what do you think people need to know about that concept?
Okay, so let's go with the first one here. So this idea that fear can shift to trust. Okay. For leaders, for entrepreneurs, we are in a position, even if we're the nicest, most gentlest person, we sign people's checks. We give people their monthly review, their yearly review. We are in charge of other people's fate. And so because of that, people can be very, very scared of us. And so they may be unwilling to tell us the truth if something is wrong. And so if they are afraid of us and they come to us and they tell us, oh man, this whole thing is just terrible. Everything has gone wrong. And we freak out and we say, what do you mean it's gone wrong? Why did you wait so long to tell me? You should have told me about this months ago. And then all of a sudden they're more and more afraid of us. But if we use a concept called rewarding honesty, which is a very, very basic concept, they come to us. It doesn't matter when they come to us. Maybe it's a month later, maybe it's a year later, maybe it's 2 years later. But this is the moment when they felt comfortable enough to trust us enough to tell us the truth. And we say, thank you so much for telling me the truth. You did the right thing. I don't know exactly how I feel about this. I'm not sure how we're going to solve this, but I'm going to get back to you in a day from now or an hour from now or a week from now, whenever we say, and we're going to solve this thing together. But I need you to understand in this moment, you did the right thing by telling me the truth. Thank you. and reward their honesty, they're going to remember that. And so then we get back to them in a week later or an hour later, whatever we said we were going to get back to them. And at that point, we're no longer thinking with our amygdala. Our amygdala is kind of that emotion caveman pre-language center of our brain that tells us if we are in danger or not. And it's the first thing that gets to process information before the rest of our brain gets a hold of it. Now, if we buy ourselves some time and we say, I appreciate you being honest with me, give me some time to think about it, we can have it pass through our amygdala, we can have it go to our cortex, and we can actually start doing some problem solving around that thing. So we're not just feeling emotions, since our amygdala is pre-language, it just says things like, but if we can get out of that part and we can start feeling and solving with our cortex, then we can come back later on and we can very calmly discuss the problem 3 months from now, a year from now, 6 years from now, when that person looks back at this moment and says, gosh, I delivered to my leader, I delivered to my boss this really, really difficult information. It was so hard, and he was so kind to me, and he thanked me for being honest with him. I can do that again. So what happens is when we say that fear has now shifted to trust, and then all of a sudden confusion shifts to clarity, if our people are willing to tell us the truth about the things that go wrong, and we can find out about them sooner rather than later, or even worse, get blindsided by somebody else by finding out about it, or even worse than that, never finding out at all, we can start to shift our confusion into clarity, because we can't know everything that's going on in every single bit of our operation. We need our people to be honest with us, and the best way to do that is to reward their honesty over and over and over again. And that is a really hard, really difficult type of discipline that most of us are not exercising at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And Justin, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on some statistical data that came out earlier this year, my friend, from KMG International and CNBC, my friend. And they both reported that 80% of leaders report feeling under pressure to ensure the long-term prosperity of their business and organization, and 80% of leaders also reported that they also need the capacity to work on themselves in order to be better leaders, my friend. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on those findings and what immediately comes to mind, my friend.
So being an entrepreneur, being in a leadership position can be a very, very lonely space. Everyone who surrounds us is dependent upon our success and failure for their success or failure. And so we tend to avoid the top 5% most exciting and wonderful things in conversation, and we tend to avoid the bottom 5% most terrible things in conversation. Because if we were to talk about those things with the people that are surrounding us, they may lose their confidence in us. And so we tend to stick to the stuff that we can talk about on social media, like I got a new puppy, or we put up a Christmas tree, things that don't really matter. That bottom 5%, that top 5%, that is where all of the growth and all of the pain lives. And if we can't talk to anybody about that in our lives that truly understands what we're going through, then we end up in situations where we are bound to ourselves. We are under immense amount of pressures. We don't have any time to work on ourselves, and we end up in places of a lot of pain. And then we start doing things that are unhealthy, like self-harm, or taking on dependencies like drugs and alcohol. And we start pouring our problems into the bottle. That's not a great place to be either. So if we're not taking time to put ourselves into situations where we can talk to other people who are in similar situations to us that are not affected by our successes and failures, it's going to be a tough road for us. And so there are groups like YPO, or which is Young Professionals Organization, or EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, or Vistage, which is a group of peer-led support groups where people can talk to each other and walk through their problems. And when they walk away from those moments, they're left with confidentiality. They don't have any advice. They just have experience shares. And they have a place where they can dump this information with people who are not affected by their success or failure. If you don't have a system like that, I highly encourage finding a system.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, yeah, Justin, I also wanted to talk to you about the concept of, the disconnect in empathy, because earlier this year, our friends over at LinkedIn reported that 92% of CEOs believe that their organization and leadership structure is empathetic towards the employees that they're trusted in leading, but only 50% agreed with that on the employee side, my friend. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on those findings and what immediately comes to mind, my friend.
Yeah. I think many of us have been both employees and leaders. And I can tell you that when I was an employee, I thought for sure that it was more difficult to be an employee than it was to be a leader. And then I became a leader and I learned that it is 10 times harder to be a leader than it is to be an employee. And so with age comes wisdom. We trade our youth for wisdom. And both are fantastic places to be. We just don't get to have both at the same time. And so I've created this, I'm actually in the process of writing a book called The Relationable Business, which is built off of the Relationable Toolkit. And the toolkit is a set of really simple ideas, small chunks of daily replicable exercises that we can use to emulate and practice emotional intelligence so that we can have the people around us feel like we have empathy for them. Emotional intelligence, I think a lot of people present this idea as if it's like kind of like a magic spell that we cast, and all of a sudden you have emotional intelligence. This is not it at all. These are daily exercises, just like going to the gym. If you want to have a strong body, you have to go, you got to work out, you have to lift those reps, you got to do the exercises every single day. And many of us don't know what those exercises are. The gym can be a terrifying place if you don't know how to use the equipment. It's the same with emotional intelligence. If you don't know how to use the equipment, it is a very, very scary thing to try to learn that. And so I built a toolkit. It's 9 very simple tools, little tiny exercises you can do on a daily basis. And one of those is that exact same thing that we talked about with rewarding honesty. We call it the safety net. It makes people feel safe to come to us and be honest. If we can start to exercise those things, we can change those numbers so that the employees feel that we have just as much empathy as our leadership does.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Justin, I am a huge believer that any leader or CEO that wants to have a successful organizational culture has to invest in their people and value their opinion. And my friend, research from LinkedIn also says that only about 53% of employees feel that their bosses value their opinion, and nearly half of all employees, 42%, say they do not feel cared for at work. So tell me about the importance of valuing the investments that your employees make to the overall organization, because that's very important, isn't it, my friend?
Feeling valued is an interesting thing because we often think of the idea as value as money. And I can tell you that the least important way to make somebody feel valued is to simply just throw more money at them. I like you, here's some more money. That lasts for about 10 seconds, and then that feeling goes away, and they say, I should have more money. And so it is the quickest way to lose value. Value to me is when somebody comes into work and the things that they need are there for them. And when they have an idea, they are listened to and their ideas are implemented. There are a lot of times where I've had employees who've come to me and they've had an idea, and I say, okay, this is a great idea. We did try this 10 years ago, and here's what happened. This was the outcome. I'm more than willing to have you try that again, and we can see if that works this time. But I think that it would be a good idea for you to go ahead and just try it yourself. If I were to turn around and I said, we tried that 10 years ago, it didn't work, don't bring that idea to me again. That is the quickest way to make somebody feel like they are not valued at all. So I love the idea of things like having snacks at work or making sure that we have the tools that our employees need. I think these are baseline physical value needs. But more so than anything, it's about taking the time to value somebody's idea and saying, you know what? We have tried that. We can try it again. Go ahead and write that up. Let's try your idea. Let's see how that works. Be willing to let people fail with their ideas, because I find that they learn those things an awful lot better through their own failures rather than just experience sharing a failure that you had earlier in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And, last week, Justin, we celebrated the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. And as you know, I have cerebral palsy, and I, just like you, speak to organizations about organizational culture. And I specifically talk to them about hiring people with disabilities. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on how you define inclusive acceptance in business and organizational culture, and how we can utilize inclusion as a competitive advantage at work, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think that in diversity, equity, inclusion can get a bad name in business, and I think the issue here is that a lot of times people feel that diversity, equity, inclusion means that if you have somebody who is different than you, then you should hire them. Period, and that's not what it means whatsoever. So there are a couple of things that I always judge first. That if somebody does not have core value alignment with my organization, then they shouldn't be in my business, period. And core value alignment to me is there's 5 items for me. Number one, lead with kindness. That's my number one core value. Number two, be graceful. Number three, be tenacious. Number four, be adept. And number five, be thoughtful. And if you can meet those 5 criteria, I don't care what your physical ability is. I don't care what your race is. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what your age is. If you align with my 5 core values, then you should be a part of my organization, period. Diversity, equity, inclusion does not mean hiring blindly. Just because somebody's different you doesn't mean that they should be hired by you. There has to be a core value alignment. Once you meet that, then you're good to go. You can put a person into your organization if they're rowing in the same direction from you, whether they're like you or they're different from you, then go ahead and make that step. If we don't have that core value alignment, though, Kevin, I got to say, not a great idea to hire somebody on just because they're different than you.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I want to talk about inner motivation, because you believe that we can use motivation without the fear behind it in order to be successful. And you also say that the return on investment on being relatable must be intentional, my friend. So tell me how we can use motivation without the fear behind it, and the ROI of being relatable at work. What do you want people to know about that, my friend?
So, as leaders, as I said earlier, people are just naturally afraid of us. We are terrifying human beings, especially as entrepreneurs. We look at somebody that has done something that was downright impossible. And if we can humanize ourselves, if we can make ourselves relationable, we can start to have people trust us. And if we're not doing that with intentionality, if we are simply walking into our offices every day and stomping our big feet and showing what big people we are and how important we are, people, their fear of us will only grow larger and larger over time. If we do not soften our edges just a little bit, if we don't make ourselves be vulnerable every once in a while, if we don't show the people that are around us, that we are human beings just like them, their fear will compound over time, and eventually they'll stop being honest with us, and eventually we will get blindsided, or we won't find out that there are any problems with our organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Justin, I've got two questions left for you. And the first is this, my friend. You say that there are three types of relationships and that we're all striving for interdependency, my friend. So let's talk about the three types of relationships and why we're all striving for interdependency in your view, my friend.
Yeah, so this one goes back to my first book called The Monogamy Spectrum. And the idea of the monogamy spectrum is that a lot of people think that there's monogamy and there's non-monogamy, and that's it. And my thought process is that there are a ton of different types of monogamy on the spectrum. And we all must define monogamy for what it means for ourselves. So when we think about the absolute purest form of monogamy, something where we only spend time with our partners, we only have a physical connection with our partner, we only have a financial connection with our partner, we only have an emotional connection with our partner, we have no other friends, we don't do business with anybody else, everything is with our partner. That is what we call codependency. And codependency is not healthy. What we're looking for is, in every relationship, we have three entities. We've got me, we've got you, and we've got us. And all three of those entities must be fed and nourished and taken care of in order for that relationship to exist. So if we look at the exact opposite of codependency, this is a word that I coined, you won't be able to look it up because it's not in the dictionary, we end up with something called isodependency. And isodependency is where we've got Justin and we've got Kevin, and we're both taken care of on our own. I go and do my thing, you go and do your thing, but we never, ever, ever do anything together. The us is not fed and nourished, whereas codependency is the opposite. Only us is nourished, but not Kevin and not Justin. In interdependency, I've got my friends, you've got your friends, we have our friends, we do some things together, we do some things independently. I'm being taken care of, all of my needs are taken care of, your needs are taken care of, and our needs as a couple is taken care of as well. And that's what we call interdependency. They all sound a lot alike. Codependency, interdependency, and isodependency. They all sound similar, but codependency, not so healthy. Isodependency, not so healthy. But interdependency, where all three entities, you, me, and us, are all taken care of, all fed, all nourished, that's what we're striving for. That's a healthy relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And just my final question for you this morning has to do with your own personal and professional legacy, my friend, and how you want that to be defined.
My own personal and professional legacy, how do you want to be defined? How long do you got, Kevin?
I'll go pop some popcorn and I'll come back. I promise. Okay.
I think when I die, I would love to have people come to my funeral and say, Justin was always kind. Justin always practiced empathy. Justin always connected with people. Justin always took the time to listen to me. Justin always led with the kindness that a human being should have on a daily basis. And at the end of the day, I don't really care if I have a big house. I don't really care if I got a big car. I have all those things. What's most important to me is to be able to sit down and to have a conversation with another human being and have it mean something at the end of the day. Really, that's the only thing that matters to me. So as long as I leave this planet filled with people who loved me and who people I loved, then I'm good to go.
Absolutely, my friend. And finally, tell me if people want to get connected with you or book to speak, my friend, what's the best way they can do that?
You just type in Justin M Riordan. M is my middle initial. It's short for merit. And so justinmriordan.com. And it's that way on every single bit of social media that's out there. It's at Justin M Riordan. You will find me.
Well, absolutely, my friend. I want to thank you for, first of all, getting up early for me on the West Coast to engage in conversation. And I want to thank you for being here this morning. It's most appreciated, my friend.
Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time and for reaching out. I've had a really great time. I look forward to seeing you again soon.